The year was 2002. Emily and James Thompson, a young couple, had just gotten married. Their love seemed unbreakable and their future bright. James, calm and sensible, dreamed of a quiet family life. Emily, sensitive and dreamy, believed their union would be the start of something wonderful. After the wedding, they moved into the house of James's mother, Margaret Thompson, an elderly woman who lived alone in a large, slightly run-down house on the outskirts of town. The first few months were idyllic. Margaret seemed kind and caring. She welcomed her daughter-in-law with open arms, helped with household chores, and in the evenings they would drink tea together, discussing future plans. The house, though old, was cozy, with high ceilings, creaky wooden floors, and large windows that let in soft light. Emily felt at home, and James was happy that his mother and wife had gotten along so well. But even then, in that apparent harmony, there were early warning signs. Margaret would sometimes freeze mid-conversation, her gaze becoming empty, as if she were staring beyond reality. She often repeated the same stories from the past, as if stuck in them. Emily tried not to pay attention, chalking it up to age. James, though he noticed the oddities, didn't think much of them. Everything changed a year later. The first sign was when Emily found her favorite book, a gift from James, torn to pieces. It was lying on the living room floor, its pages scattered everywhere. Emily, shocked, asked Margaret what had happened. She just shrugged, saying the cat must have done it. But there was no cat in the house. From that moment on, the tension began to grow. Margaret started criticizing Emily more. Her cooking wasn't good enough. Her cleaning wasn't thorough enough. She began meddling in their personal lives, knocking on their bedroom door in the middle of the night to check if everything was okay. James tried to defend his wife, but every time he did, his mother would burst into tears, accusing him of forgetting her, the mother who had dedicated her life to him. Emily felt increasingly uncomfortable. She felt like she was being watched. She began noticing her things disappearing and then reappearing in the most unexpected places. Once, she found her shoes in the oven, even though she clearly remembered leaving them in the closet. James, seeing her fear, tried to reassure her, but he too began to doubt. He noticed his mother muttering to herself, her gaze growing more and more unhinged. James was certain his mother was destroying their marriage. He saw how she humiliated Emily, how she tried to control their every move. One night, he heard his mother standing outside their bedroom door, whispering something. When he stepped out, she said she was just checking if the window was closed so birds wouldn't get in. But in her eyes, he saw something terrifying, something that made him shudder. He began to notice his mother behaving strangely. She could sit in the corner of the room for hours, staring at one spot, and then suddenly start screaming that someone was trying to poison her. James tried to talk to her, to convince her to see a doctor, but she would only get angry, accusing him of wanting to get rid of her. Margaret, however, saw things differently. She was convinced that Emily and James hated her, that they wanted her dead. She told relatives that her daughter-in-law was poisoning her food, that they whispered behind her back, plotting how to get rid of her. She claimed to have seen Emily standing over her at night with a knife in her hand, though James insisted nothing like that had ever happened. The relatives, hearing her complaints, began to doubt. Some thought Margaret had gone mad, others that something was truly wrong in the house, but no one dared to intervene, afraid of becoming the next victim. Strange things began happening in the house. At night, footsteps could be heard, even though everyone was in their rooms. Doors opened and closed on their own, and once Emily saw Margaret's reflection in the mirror, even though she was asleep at the time. She began to doubt her own sanity, wondering if she was the one losing her mind. James, seeing her fear, tried to convince her it was all in her imagination, but he too began to notice that something was off in the house. He started hearing voices whispering his name, and once he saw a shadow in the corner of the room moving on its own. The tension reached its peak one night when Margaret burst into their bedroom screaming, "You want to kill me? I know it! I've seen it!" She was holding a kitchen knife, and her eyes burned with madness. James, trying to protect Emily, grabbed her arm, but at that moment, something snapped. Margaret fell to the floor, the knife slipping from her hand. She lay there, motionless, and the room fell silent. When the ambulance arrived, it was too late for Margaret. The doctors said she had suffered a heart attack, but James and Emily knew it wasn't just a coincidence. They began going through Margaret's things and found a diary where she wrote about her fears, about how she felt her mind slipping away. She wrote about seeing shadows, hearing voices, and being unable to tell reality from nightmare. But the most chilling part was the last entry. "I know they want to kill me, but I won't give them the chance. I'll do it first." James and Emily sold the house and moved away. They tried to start a new life, but the shadow of the past followed them. Sometimes they thought they heard footsteps behind them or saw Margaret's reflection in the mirror. They never spoke of it aloud, but both knew the house that was supposed to be their refuge would always be a trap. And who knows? Maybe the truth lay somewhere in between. Maybe Margaret really had gone mad. Or perhaps the house was cursed and it had driven her insane. Or maybe it was them, without realizing it, who had become part of something terrible, something they would never understand.